Blog Talk Radio.
I hear there's rumors on the internets that we're going to have a draft. We're not going to have a draft, period.
Everyone, welcome to the Cynical Revolution. Thanks for listening. This is Cynical Revolt. We got an interesting show for you today, I think. We can talk about House Republicans trying to cut domestic spending and President Obama's plan, and talk about Democrats and the DNC, how they're not going to, or they say they're not going to cut corporate money, and some foreign policy, including another reason we should get the hell out of Afghanistan. Basically, let's just get right into it. House Republicans are now pushing a proposal that would reduce the domestic spending by 9%. Of course, Obama famously in his State of the Union address said if we're going to freeze domestic spending, well, House Republicans are wanting to cut it by 9%. And according to the Huffington Post, if this is actually enacted, this would lay off tens of thousands of federal employees. And also announced this week, Obama is planning on cutting funding for programs that help heat poor people's homes. A really classy proposal. And Republicans want to cut programs like WIC that help mothers and children get them food, milk, and what they need. So these are the programs they're going after, both the Obama administration and Republicans. So great people, them guys. By the way, if you want to call in, if you have an opinion or whatever, call in at 1-949-209-2964, and that's 1-949-209-2964. So basically we have these. Not sure what the word for it is. Frankly, they're terrible proposals, terrible on the middle and lower bracket class. And what they don't seem to realize, or I don't know what they're thinking is exactly, but the economy and jobs, shouldn't that be placed ahead of the deficit? Shouldn't jobs and the economy and the general welfare of people put in front of the deficit, more important than the deficit? I knew there was a poll recently, and they said, they asked average Americans, what's the important priorities? And number one was jobs and the economy, and number three was the deficit. People care about the deficit, yes, but they want the economy and the jobs fixed first. Then we can worry about the deficit. There's several ways to do this, but the idea that cutting the deficit will help the economy, this idea that, if we cut the deficit, it will help out the economy. This idea is based on the idea that lowering the deficit will restore confidence in the bond market, and therefore it makes money worth more, and therefore allowing more people to hire. Just if you separate it from empirical reality, even then it doesn't sound very good. And this, of course, has never worked. You've never seen it work in reality. And so, in my opinion, there's not much of a reason to believe that this would work. And the programs calling for cutting WIC spending or even the EPA is laughable because they're not main expenditures. They're not going after defense spending or corporate welfare. Those are two of the biggest eaters in our deficit. They have to go after that. But they won't. They're paid by those guys not to. So the whole deficit thing's a sham. It's not going to even cut enough to put a dent in the deficit, but it would hurt people that need those programs. So let's move on.